Okay, I'm here with Robert and Chase and Brand of the Thunderstruck project. How are you today?
Oh, great. It's at 10 o'clock in the morning over here, or 11 o'clock. Oh, I let the time go by, didn't I? I've been writing a lot of pages for our Thunderstruck website, so please forgive me for getting the time wrong.
That's all right. So, how about you tell us a little bit about the Thunderstruck project?
Okay, well, first of all, Thunderstruck is a spacecraft. It's a modular craft, and it's not just one of them, it's a series of craft that can be put together according to the customer's requirements. So we have a couple of different bodies that we'll use. One is a winged re-entry vehicle if you want to bring back stuff gently from space. A capsule if you want to either come in hot from a long way away, or you want to, we don't mind a hardish landing with a parachute. And finally, if you're not coming back, we have a body for just, you don't need heat shielding, you don't need wings, you don't need parachutes. So, in fact, we can give you more payload if you aren't coming back. And we can either be in low Earth orbit, or we can put um, an ion engine on the back of this thing and head out into space.
Okay. Yeah, so I understand you're already doing test flights. How about you tell us about that?
Well, that's Jason's area. He basically hijacked our first test phase for Thunderstruck, and we've let him. And I guess the answer as to why he did that is very simple.
Yeah, there was I was overhearing my dad and a couple of friends talking about the Thunderstruck, the spacecraft, and he was explaining that there was three test phases. There was first the test phase, so going through the sound barrier, and then yeah, and then you have the second stage, which is going up on a sounding rocket, and then re-entering again.
Yeah, and you don't need much thermal protection for that, very minor.
And then the third part was is going into orbit and then deorbiting.
Yeah, and landing back at a site where you want to land at. Yeah. But basically, he said, well, I can do the first stage of testing all by myself, or the first phase of testing. So he's talked us into letting him be effectively a major part of the design for testing and doing the balloon flight, and also doing the piloting of the transonic glider coming back down from about 45 kilometres test flight. And basically, it should reach 2,000 to 3,000 kilometres per hour coming back, depending on actually how high we get the balloon in the first place. But we're trying to target 45 kilometres with a probably hydrogen gas as the lifting gas.
Okay. So Jason, how do you feel about being a part of all this?
Yeah, it's really exciting. Me being an RC pilot, I fly a lot of planes, multi-rotors like quadcopters and tricopters and stuff like that. This was really, really exciting.
Yeah, and basically, just in case you didn't pick up on it before, he's standing on the ground with goggles on and the remote control device. He's not up there in this thing. Oh dear. So, also he's quite expert at launching balloons into the stratosphere. We've done 21 together so far, and we've recovered all 21 payloads, and two of those were done in Croatia, where we went over there and we flew student experiments into the stratosphere for the first time over there, and basically had to avoid mountains, swamps, forests, and landmines. So we had to do some precision forecasting to work out where it was coming down, and thus which days we could fly. But we did that very successfully, except we ended up in a few trees on one of the flights. very hard to avoid forests when 50% of the country has got forest.
That's pretty cool. So, one sec here. Yeah, we had a question from one of our viewers. How do you feel? Do you have any advice for mentoring young people, Robert?
Well, mentoring young people, I think the best way to mentor young people is with other young people. As much as I can be inspirational, they'll look at me and say, well, you know, he's taken that long to do what he's doing. This boy is more inspiring because he's doing it right now. And yes, I do help mentor people with, or get them interested in space big time, sure. But Jason's actually conducted talks in front of scientists, so he's getting the hang of public speaking, but more importantly, he gives a lot of lessons to other school students about what we do and how we do it. And in Albury one morning, we even launched a balloon prior to your lectures. Yeah, we were doing it in a country town for Science Week.
It could be quite inspiring because we were giving the talks to the schools, and it's always quite nice because we have the tracking of the balloon back on the projector behind us while we're talking, so they could see each track, and they really enjoyed it. They really engaged, and when we hit a new altitude record, they all cheered, you know, started clapping, which is really great.
Yeah, sometimes it was an altitude record, sometimes we just happened to be over something important. In fact, the balloon almost flew right on top of the Honeysuckle Creek site that took the first footsteps of Armstrong on the moon on that particular flight. We just amazingly had it go right over the old Honeysuckle Creek site. It was just like, how did that happen? I just love coincidences like that.
That's interesting. Speaking of Apollo, I understand you have a history with the Apollo NASA program, Robert.
Yeah, an almost accidental history, but isn't that how things start sometimes? I just happened to be working in the building, in the site, and for the company that just happened to be looking after NASA's switching centre here in Sydney for the feed from the Parkes Radio Telescope, which is a big telescope. It's about 60 metres, 200 and odd feet across. One of the biggest telescopes at the time, and certainly the best telescope. It was configured to be a receiver for the moon transmissions, and also Honeysuckle Creek, which was a NASA tracking station that was 30 metres across on the dish. And the whole thing was just amazingly going so well. It was doing well. And then someone just happened to connect our 240 volt mains to the 110 volt media converter and blew it to pieces. So it was all hands to the pump. They had to get another one of these systems out and wire it up and test it and everything else. Meanwhile, all the wiring that was going on separately, well, they had no one to do that all of a sudden. So they grabbed me and said, "You can wire, can't you?" And I nodded my head, and all of a sudden I'm wiring up Apollo 11 systems in Sydney. Now, anyone could have done it, but the fact was it was very inspiring, and I actually got to play a part in it. So whenever you see that video, it was coming through some of my wiring, which was fun. As a 17-year-old on work experience, it was fantastic.
Yes, sounds like it. So, so we've had another question. What do you think of the status of Australia's public school system teaching kids about STEM topics?
Well, STEM is certainly flavour of the month here as well. But as far as the public school system is concerned, it's pretty good, especially compared to other countries. I'm sure that some public schools don't perform as well as others, and I think that's the nature of the various teachers and principals. And when you go to a public school, you get a private school, you get interviewed as a parent and as the student to see whether you're worthy of getting into the private school. But if you go to a public school, you can actually interview the teachers and work out if those teachers are the best teachers for your student. My eldest daughter, who's 19 now, she's in second year uni and doing very well. She decided to go to a particular school here in Sydney called Sydney Secondary College, probably the largest public school in the state. It has 3 campuses, but the teachers were exceptional and the principal is just great. He really looks after the school and the teachers and makes sure he has the best staff. And we've had exceptional support from the school for especially Jason's STEM work. And they can give their students extra subjects, extra projects and all sorts of things to keep them stimulated. And this year Jason's going into a public school. It's sort of a competition. There are awards at the end of it, but basically it's going to allow him to do a lot of research in the area that interests him in aerospace and aeronautics, and he'll be able to compete, end up going into a national championship, I guess, and then even an international one. So, but it all relies on him doing a lot of extra work and putting in the hours. But it's all there in the public school system. It's amazing how much is actually in place. Not all the teachers know about it. In fact, our principal did not know about this particular young scientist competition. But nonetheless, it's there and easily found by myself, and I took it to him, and he's full of support. And over here, our parents and citizens groups really put in the effort to help with getting people to, say, Hawaii for, the robotics competitions around the world. So they've got a robotics group that meets at lunchtimes and sometimes gets involved with other things, such as going to the local museum where they've got a Mars yard with robotic rovers, so that kids and classes can learn all about Mars and robotics. So, look, there's a heck of a lot of support. There's 2,000 kids at his school, 3 campuses, and 2 of them are on the water. So they have activities like kayaking and sailing and all sorts of crazy things in the public school, and it's very, very inspiring. And the schools pretty much all have sports fields in the grounds of the schools or right next door. And he also likes to do rock climbing, so he gets out to the local university where they've got climbing walls and gets involved. So if the school doesn't have facilities, they're there in the community, the local community. And it's just great how much opportunity is there in the public school system here in Australia. But I must say, something that US viewers will find interesting is that they do wear uniforms almost at every public school here, and every private school too, I suspect, even more so. So you just can't go wearing your regular clothes to school, and the idea of that is so that kids can't compete and you can't have people wearing fancy, expensive clothes and everything else, and having various cliques and so on. Some people say it doesn't allow for self-expression, but what the heck? It's not something I truly believe in. I think self-expression in uniforms is not particularly important. Whether you dress crazily or what. Uniforms at least provide a level playing field and get rid of fashion issues and the like. So, love the public school system here. Love the opportunities for STEM here, and I think most principals have a very, very good desire for their students to excel, and they make room for those kids that like doing this crazy stuff. What do you think, Jason?
Yeah, it's good.
Oh, that's it. It's good.
Yeah.
And the 3 campuses at his school, 2 of them have 600 kids in each one of them. and they're years 7 to 10, and the last school is fed by that first two and has years 11 to 12. And because of that huge population, 600 kids in the last 2 years of their schooling, they actually have the greatest number of choices of any school in the state, including any of the private schools. So their kids can really focus on what their future is going to be. And thus, again, a lot of opportunities for focusing on STEM subjects.
Awesome. So that's all I've got. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, sure. Look, I've been involved in so many space missions. It's not funny. That's probably something that I do love a lot. In fact, I've been stationed at Parkes as part of the ESA team at Parkes. I was seconded to it, so I was actually asked to be part of the team for the encounter. I wasn't there all the time, but being stationed at Parkes, I managed to do a lot of work on the radio side of that, and that was all new to me way back. That's about, is that 30 odd years now since Giotto? That was ESA's Giotto project, the Halley's Comet, and things were going very poorly, and I was asked to go out to work on why the links back to Germany were failing. It turns out it wasn't the links, and it was very embarrassing at a public level, at a political level, and every other level you can think of, because I wandered out as a young sort of like technician, and they'd raised political hell because they weren't getting the support they thought they deserved. So I went out there and I sort of like just said, well, I think I found the problem, and unfortunately it's in your packet switcher. And nothing, this is all just straight comms. And I just did the biggest blunder of all times by just haphazardly pointing out that a young technician just did all the stuff that their staff couldn't do over almost a year of complaining, and it was right in their gear. So engineers had to come out from head office and basically speak on my behalf. I wasn't allowed in the meeting, so I was just there. I had to spoon feed the engineers into explaining a lot of things, including stuff they didn't understand, like major delay equalizing issues or the finer points of those. And doesn't matter, technical stuff. And they had to learn it parrot fashion and go in and repeat it. And eventually, when it was found to be true and I knew what I was talking about, they turned around and said, we want you there on the mission. We want you there on the lead up at critical times and on the mission. And in that meantime, I found a 3 dB error, a received level error in their calculations, which they certainly appreciated, but the girl who was meant to be looking after it didn't appreciate, the radio engineer. But it was one of those important things. And the guy that was heading up this whole group was Boris Smets, the guy who worked out that the Doppler shift on the Huygens probe was going to stop all the data coming back, and they had to re-engineer how the probe went down to the moon so that it still kept the reception going. You send a spacecraft out to the outer moons, and all of a sudden, you lose everything. So hopefully I had a little hand in reminding him along the way how to check the systems. But Boris Smets was a lovely guy. But I also was there for the Voyager encounters with Neptune and Uranus, not in that order. But yeah, that was really fantastic, being out at one of the major sites in this world for picking up deep space data and so on. And I looked after a lot of the work on the shuttles right up to the first unfortunate accident. But I actually have awards on my wall back there, but right, I won't swivel around to show it. The support of STS-1 given to me by John Young. And,
I think you're freezing up there.
okay, I don't know what's happening, but is it okay now?
Seems to be.
Okay. So suffice it to say, I just had so much early space work, and it's only in recent years I've returned to this sector, and I've returned more in an engineering capacity, although the spacecom side of things is still really, really important because we want to put together a deep space network so that we can actually use those dishes to talk to Mars. And the Thunderstruck craft, when we put it together, will be more of it's a service. We're not going to sell the craft to other people to use. We'll provide the mission control facilities, and jointly or whatever. But we'll also provide not only the mission control, but we'll provide the communications and the vehicle. So it's a bit of a triple play to really maximise our returns on our investment. But that means we can talk all the way out to Mars. We're going to be playing with laser communications, and yesterday I just spent a day at a laser fabrication unit where we'll probably be doing a lot of the research for how we'll put our laser systems together. But we'll marry that as part of a tracking system as well with tag and return capabilities. So you can tag a passive reflector, but the passive reflector is able to easily be identified. So you can either use that to go back to a site, say an asteroid or whatever. So we can rendezvous with a spacecraft that's even lost all its power. It really doesn't matter. The tagging of these craft means we can easily find them. So look, there's lots of things going on in my life. The big announcement was that we will go to Mars, and I expect that in 2022 we're just doing the orbital checks now to make sure that we're 100% happy with our ability to get there and complete the mission objectives. But we expect that we're releasing an experiment, or we may be releasing lots of Cubesats, I suspect, probably the second thing. And then we'll act as a shepherd and stay close to them and relay their data back to Earth. So we're looking around for what we can do with Cubesats at Mars in 2022. So I expect in the next year, provided the next couple of flights go well and we remain on schedule, that's probably about 2 years' time. We'll put out a paper requesting CubeSat experiments and whatever are the best experiments, and they'll be very much experiments that look at providing a settlement on Mars. We will then get those experiments to fly to Mars with us. It's a bit of a shakedown cruise for the Iron engine, and as much as we have a long way to go, I'm pretty confident that we'll get there because of the way we're financing it and also the people we've already got on board. But I guess stay watching the project Thunderstruck.org website because we'll be putting up more and more technical information. In fact, I got a detractor yesterday on the website saying, "Hey guys, what are you doing? You haven't put up much information, therefore this is not a hoax, but it is not going to fly." Well, guess what? The reason we're not putting it all up is because there's a lot of commercial and confidence requirements here and a lot of partners that we're partnering with. And the first phase of testing has our Department of Defense backing it. And I expect that they may come in and back the extra phase as well. They're very interested in getting a craft here in Australia that has strong capabilities along the lines they want.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks.
Okay. Well, this is one of the things that we'd like to interact with those people interested in Mars, and especially the technical people who can really define what experiments need to go in orbit in the next 6 to 8 years, and then we'll take them out there for the heck of it. We'll definitely have to look for some additional funding for some of that, but we need to do a shakedown cruise, and therefore we need to demonstrate our capabilities at that stage, and this is an ideal way of doing it.
Yeah. Sounds interesting. So good luck with all this. And thanks.
All the best. Nice to talk with you.
Nice to talk with you too.
Thanks, Heidi.
Mhm.